Hello, and welcome to the latest Oz and James adventure. The idea is very simple. We've done the wines of France, we've done the wines of America, but now we're going to see if we can find the drinks that speak for modern Britain. This was actually Oz's idea. It was conceived in a pub, and because we'd been in a pub, I agreed to it. It was a triumph of beer over experience. Still, my instructions were buy a suitable car and then meet Oz Clarke here on the White Cliffs of Dover at 9 o'clock, which I've done. Eventually, a heroic figure hoves into view. It carries a handbag, which can only mean one thing. Morning, Clarke.
God, you don't change, do you? Good morning, mate.
Good morning. People will think we're Italian if you do that.
They won't think you're
Bang on
Italian. I can
10:30. Well done.
Never mind about the time. Think of the place. Just think of the place. Isn't this a wonderful place?
It is a wonderful place,
This is the gateway to Britain. I mean, we're going to do the why, the where, the how, the who, the when, and the what of British drink. You're going to have a fantastic summer learning everything about drink.
Just so that we're in the right frame of mind, can we just start? Simply, I am a bit simple when it comes to drink, a pint. That's all I want right now, a pint. Agreed?
Love it, love it. Where should we go?
Yorkshire. Come and see the car, because you'll like it. If you're struggling to put a name to a face, the polished-looking chap, well, if you're looking at his head, is International Wine Ponce Oz Clarke.
Thank you, and that's James May. Over the last 2 years, I've given up my summer holidays in an attempt to educate this scruff bag in the art of wine appreciation.
In other words, we spent weeks visiting Oz's posh mates, which turned me into a wine ponce too. Smooth and Melanie, it's a Viognier.
Oh, damn.
So this time, Oz and I are going to spend our summer holiday back in Blighty. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this happy breed of men. Tra-la, bloody-la.
I'm going to make it my mission, James, to ensure that you learn so much about British drink that you never look at your favourite tipple in the same way again. I'm going to share the secrets of our national drinks, beer and whiskey.
Go on, man, you can do this.
Yes, yes, yes.
Gin and cider.
Now, that's fighting cider there, so watch out what you're holding.
Wah! We'll reveal the difference between faceless multinational companies and honest garage-based brewers.
I'm just going for a pint.
Oh, yes, blah, blah, blah. We will search the culture of British drinking, from the highest strata of polite society to Cornwall.
We'll drink at the very fount of our alcoholic heritage. I like beer out of a bucket.
In the past, James has been entrusted only with choosing the transport for our trip. In France, we had a Bentley.
Jaguar.
Yes, and lived in a tent. In California, we drove a ruddy grey bus and stayed in trailer parks. So, this year,
I've been entrusted with choosing the transport. I've spent the whole budget on this. It's a 1982 Rolls-Royce Corniche convertible.
And have you put as much thought into the sleeping arrangements?
Well, I haven't put as much money into them.
What were you thinking of, James?
Well, on the basis that we're touring Britain, I wanted something very unmistakably British, which it is. And it's homely and comforting and warm. It's nice. If it's terrible, fair enough, we'll set fire to it. Deal?
That's a deal.
The first leg of our trip will take us 300 miles straight up the backbone of the country. It was my suggestion that we begin our hunt for the drinks that define Britain in Yorkshire.
Even though we were in my home county of Kent, which has pubs. But I am coming round to the idea. We're heading up to the north, to Yorkshire, grand, great, good old Yorkshire.
Champion.
Because that's sort of the beginning of this whole British experience. And as something of a Yorkshireman myself, I will concede that the archetypal British beer is a pint of Yorkshire bitter.
To be honest, all I'm after here is a nice pint in a nice pub. So I'm taking us to the Tan Hill Inn. It's at the highest point on the Yorkshire moors. Yeah, we're like driving to top of world.
We rate gradely.
No, like it.
Middling to posh.
It's the highest pub in Yorkshire in the world, apparently. I've never been here, but I've heard a lot about it.
I'm so thirsty.
Good.
Is this normal?
Very normal at Sandhill. Is this
Look, I'll be over at the bar.
This is bizarre.
Have a seat, old boy.
Thank you, old boy. Look at that, James. A beautiful pint of Yorkshire bitter. Just actually slightly more orange, amber in colour than the Yorkshire bitter often is. Lovely head. You see that head, the way it's just creamy, but just beginning to slightly break up, but a lovely yeasty, creamy quality.
Just drink the first one.
Just let me tell you about it.
It's a simple, honest
Let me just tell you about what Yorkshire bitter is supposed to be about, and then you can start drinking it down and enjoy it. A little bit of knowledge, James, greatly increases your pleasure. All right.
I don't mind learning a little bit about beer, but please don't, don't be about beer like you are about wine.
I am not like that about wines.
So why don't you get an in?
You can go and buy yourself a pint, but if I'm going to buy you a
Well,
pint...
that seems like bad form now, if I go and just buy... I'll buy you another one as well, that's reasonable, I don't mind. Would you like to try a different beer?
I'd like to try a different
Shall
beer,
I
please.
choose one for you?
Why not?
Right. Oz ruined my first pint with his tiresome quest for my greater understanding, so now I'll ruin his second. This is the local Tanhill Brewery's bitter.
Yeah.
That is a pint of
Something else.
Australian lager. Begins with an F.
It's completely tasteless bollocks, that.
This is very interesting because there's very little in the way of hops in this beer. It doesn't have the bitter aftertaste that one feels in the throat with a very hoppy beer. There's an interesting overtone, almost of... Let me just check.
All right, James, all right. Cheers.
After a few more pints, we headed back to our new home. Oz and I are going to be spending a great deal of time in this tin tent, and I shall be chronicling events on a special camera that makes us look ill. Good evening, viewers. This is Beer Cam.
Mr. Cam.
Now, I'm going to talk to you. Could you put your hands down? You look a bit weird.
Those are my knickers down there, fathead.
I can't see your pink pants because they blend in too well with your pink duvet and your pink pillow. What do you think of the caravan?
I think it is small, inadequate, poorly made. However, I shall get very, very fond of it, and I'm utterly looking forward to spending the whole of this summer in close proximity to you, and I will provide you with much ale.
Correct answer, because no matter how shabby it is, it's a lot better than outside. Good night, TV's Oz Clark.
Right, James, it's time for your beer education to begin. First, we're going to find out what goes into your beloved pint. And the most important ingredient is barley.
To be honest, Oz, I did know that.
But to help you really understand the earth-shattering significance of barley, I need to take you back through the mists of time to when the ancient Britons roamed the land.
One or two still do.
We are standing here, James, in the cradle of civilization.
Brace yourself, viewers.
Barley is basically full of grains like this. Grains are full of starch. Starch can't ferment into alcohol, but there's one Achilles heel in the barley plant's life. Each spring, to create a new root, to create a new barley plant, the starch has to turn into sugar to feed the root that it sets down. And at that moment, the yeasts, if they're around in the air, if they can find the sugar, they can attack the sugar and turn it into alcoholic drink. You could actually put this in a dry place and store it for 12 months. Each time you wanted to actually make it into beer, you'd warm it up and make it a bit wet, and the poor old thing would think, oh, springtime, got to get the sugars going to get my roots going. You say, ha, gotcha, and you bang the yeast on there, you mash it all up, and you can make beer every week. You can't do that with wine and things. You can only make it once a year.
Exactly, but this stuff, essentially, because it's in a husk,
yeah.
Yes, it stores itself. It's in its own little shed.
It's in its own little shed, protected. That means that people actually started living in places, in communities, not because they wanted to do things like having houses and things, but because they wanted to brew beer. And once they were in communities, they then wrote poetry and symphonies and invented the steam engine and started going on caravan holidays. That is civilization. And the reason for civilization is because we wanted to drink beer.
That was genuinely interesting. Should we have a pint?
No. You can have a pint once you fully understand the process by which said pint is created. Before being sent to the brewery, the barley needs to germinate in a process called malting, so we're heading for a maltings in Castleford, West Yorkshire. Now we're travelling forward through time to the 18th century when this grand family business was founded.
Don't slam the door, you fathead.
The doors are so heavy, James. This is the head office of the malt master.
Thomas Fawcett.
Thomas Fawcett.
This looks like the sort of place where you'd encounter the ghost of Jacob Marley.
He may be in there at that very minute. He could be in there. It's more.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. James.
The Fawcett family have been turning barley into malt for over 200 years, and James Fawcett is the 7th generation in the business. Now, we've been in a field of barley looking at these wonderful grains, and we want you to show us how that grain of barley is turned into malt, ready to be made into beer.
I'd be delighted to show you. Now keep in mind your head. It's some low beams in here.
These are the husks of the barley that we just saw in the field.
Yep.
And they come here, and what, you've made them wet?
That started just off as a barley grain. We've steeped it. It's now on the floor. It's 3 days. You can see the roots. They've got a good root system.
You've tricked it into thinking it's springtime and time to make a new barley stick.
Absolutely.
Stem, stalk, whatever it is. So you've misled millions and millions of husks of barley.
Very unkind, yes.
How much beer will this lot make? How much is in here?
I think if you took every grain of malt that we produce, it would make 252 million pints. And we're one of the very smallest maltings left in the country.
Wow.
252 million pints. And quite a few of them will taste of our shoes.
Did you tread in something? What's this?
What? That's my bag of malt that I've borrowed.
Malt?
Yeah, borrowed it. You fathead!
Me, I've just picked up your wretched bag of malt.
Well, only you could have picked it up and broken the bloody
There's
bag. Don't stick your hand in it. Just leave it in there.
I want to.
Idiot. I was hoping to make some malted milk biscuits. We didn't speak for a bit after that, but a chap can't be cross with another chap for long. Should we have a pint?
Soon, James, soon. First, we're crossing into Derbyshire to find out about hops. The soul of beer, the heart, the emotions, the source of the glorious flavours that make beer, beer.
Oh, come on, where are we going?
OK, now, we're going to a wonderful place. It's called Thornbridge, and they make, at the moment, what I think is my favourite beer.
What's it called?
It's called Jaipur, this beer, and it's an India Pale Ale.
I've had it. And do you know where I've had it?
Where?
With you, you fuddled old fool, in your local.
God, you mean I actually bought you a pint of this stuff in my local? Damn.
Finally, I'm going to meet some honest, no-nonsense northern beer-making pillars of Tut Brewing community. Hey up, Becca's like.
All we've got to do is to find Tut Brewery.
Is that the brewery?
Well, bits of it.
Where do I go?
I don't know. Look at this, isn't it fantastic?
So we've gone past the house, so is there going to be a brewery building down here?
Are we going the right way?
So here we are then at the other end of the stately home and the gate leading back onto the road. and no opportunity to turn the car around. You don't really know what you're doing, do you? You could disconnect the caravan.
And then turn it round.
Yeah. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, remember?
Ah, good idea. Brilliant. Where would James be without me?
At the brewery.
And we're off.
Brewers, James.
They don't look very Yorkshire.
Are you brewers?
We are indeed.
Brilliant.
Welcome.
I'm Oz.
They don't sound very
right.
Yorkshire.
Well, that's because Stefano Cossi is from Italy and Kelly Evans is from New Zealand. Neither of them has ever had a Yorkshire pudding or owned a whippet, and neither of them can do a Yorkshire accent.
That's three of you then.
But they do know a real lot about two hops.
Fathead.
So that's a hop, and these grow on like a vine, like a
Yes.
weedy thing.
Big vine, yeah.
And how much of that would you have in 1 pint of a proper beer?
It would depend, really. If it's a good beer, you'd probably have a lot of hops. 100 maybe.
100 in one
Yeah,
pint?
if it's a very heavily hopped pint,
Really?
I'd like to think so.
Hang on, we've got a beer fact for the viewers. That's a hop, and you could have anything up to 100 of those in the pint. I mean, not floating around in the pint, but they've been used to flavour the pint.
Right.
If you drink a pint and it has sort of tastes and flavours of slight oiliness, spiciness, bitterness, almost like a tannin thing that you would get with your red wines, that's hops.
Wasn't listening. Sorry, I was much too
Wasting
happy.
my bloody
I
breath.
wasn't. I was
Right.
much too happy with the
I'm
handful
interested
of
in
hops.
getting beer
Do you want to
facts.
say it again or not?
See, I've had some beers which I think are too hoppy because they just taste of bitterness.
You want to balance bitterness with smoothness and some maltiness as well, and round out the beer.
You're right, though. It's very nice.
Initial sweetness, you get a real sweetness right at the beginning, which the bitterness balances out.
Yes, and then the bitterness sort of pursues it down your
it
throat.
does, yeah.
It's like
describe the
sweetness is a
flavours.
nymph being chased by a Viking of bitterness down the gullet. It's terrific.
Just to say, you actually... Now, when you taste beer, since you're such a beer expert all of a sudden, if you're going to judge the hops, you've swallowed, as if you wouldn't.
You're not. People don't spit beer.
No, they don't. But what they do is they burp it back.
Okay.
Take some down your throat and burp back the flavours for us.
That's new to me.
I can't burp because it's like trying to go for a waz when someone's standing next to you.
If I turn my back on you, could you burp?
It'll just happen.
This smells like blackcurrants.
How's that?
That is great. Now, though,
taste?
don't muck about. What's the flavour in your mouth?
Beer.
Why do we bother?
So, what have I learned? Well, foreign chaps can brew British beer, and they don't notice if you nick a bag of hops. What's next, sir?
Well, now we're heading back to Castleford, to a place that might be about to empty an ashtray into the foaming flagon of Yorkshire's beer-drinking culture.
I don't believe it.
It's a vineyard in Yorkshire.
Well, that's not right.
It may not be right, but it's there, isn't it?
I doubt anyone's ever shouted, "Come, quick, there's trouble at Vineyard."
Seriously, if it's any good, I'll buy some. I'll buy a case. I'd love to have some.
Why don't you just say a bottle to start with?
That sounds like a warning.
But when you're
It's
on
terrible, isn't it? And you're just...
It's quite good. And just when you're on a trip, if you bought a case of everything you like, you won't be able to get back home because the roller will just be,
Well, we can put it in the
piled up with
caravan.
cases.
That's what the caravan's for. It's to fill up with souvenirs. Anyway, we're not going to visit many vineyards, are we?
Oh, no, of course not.
I can't... I'm never, ever doing Oz and James again. I'm getting home and I'm ringing up Gilly Goulden. Vineyard's my arse.
20 years ago, a chemistry teacher, George Bowden, yes, bought a field with the ideal aspect, soil and exposure for growing grapes. In short, land with the perfect terroir.
Was it one of those Yorkshire terroirs?
And now Leventhorpe is the most northern commercial vineyard in the country. Hi, George. How are you? This is James.
Hello, James.
Hello. Growing vines doesn't seem very Yorkshire.
Oh, I don't know. They've been around here for a couple of thousand years or thereabouts.
Have they?
As far as I know, about the only time they haven't been around is from about the First World War until, would you believe, the 1980s. That was when I came along.
But the popular view of Yorkshire is as a nation full of hardy beer-drinking chaps.
I'm trying to change them from hardy beer-drinking chaps to
hardy wine-drinking chaps.
Even though he's a Yorkshireman, George has agreed to give us a taste
Die.
of his wine and nout, but only if, as on previous adventures, I do some pretend work first. Token gesture should do it.
Bit there, bit there. Excellent. Let's have a drink. This smells a bit like one of those Viogniers. Viognier?
Viognier.
One of my favourite wines.
Doesn't it? It has a slightly sweet, oily smell.
Apricot kind of things. And that's the phenolic thing. This is Céval Blanc.
Céval Blanc.
This is a grape that they use in England to try and make wines a little bit like things like Chablis. That's the kind of stuff. Fairly neutral in flavour, but it picks up some of the mineral and ages rather well. God, that's acid. That wine will keep for about 10 years. George, I don't know how long I've been trying your wines.
I'm sorry.
Stop spitting all over my shirt. Come to Yorkshire for the acid, tart flavours.
Light and delicate.
Light and delicate, you say. I say tart. I say sort of that lovely crunchy tartness. I think that is a very good example of it.
As an
It's
expert
exciting.
in food and wine matching, I think that would go very, very well with a chicken tikka buna and a bindi bhaji. Because you'd have the richness of the chicken tikka buna and the spices, and bindi bhaji is quite oily, and it has that slight slimy quality, and this would cut through all that with its crisp, rapier-like, acidic freshness. Why don't we buy a bottle off George, go and find a tandoori, and try that theory out?
Beer before curry, James. Beer before curry. You know the rules.
Sorry, you're quite right.
So now I'm going to round off this lesson by taking you on a pub crawl. And don't worry, because someone else is driving.
Oh, sounds perfect. Where are we going?
The most idyllic location imaginable in Yorkshire.
So explain to me exactly the rationale behind coming to the station.
Well, there are 3 stations in a row here on this railway line, each with actually licensed bars packed full of real ales. So I thought we'd do the whole lot of them. There's half an hour between each train at the station. We'll do the whole lot and get the next train each time.
How many beers?
About 30.
Really?
Yes!
So we can have a couple, nod off on the train and miss our stop. That's a great British tradition.
In the old days, it seemed that nearly every railway station in the land had a cosy bar for thirsty travellers. But now there are only a few left. This place used to be a waiting room that was transformed into a pub in the mid-90s, and now it's renowned for its real ales.
There's tasting notes on beers here, written like wine tasting notes. Aromatic light ale, specially brewed, blah blah, fruity taste combining with licorice and hops develop an astringent bitterness. I'm going to test you. Could we have, I'm not even going to tell you what it is, can we have that one, please? You said one of I'm not that one. Could we please have, look away, could we please have that one?
Yes, of course.
Double bluff. I've chosen the same one.
I want your tasting note on that beer, please.
According to the notes, Oz should use words like citrus.
Smell it if you want to. The one thing about smelling it is the thing about the froth at the top is it holds a lot of the hop aroma.
What sort of a beer is it?
It's really delicious. It's malty. It's got pale sort of colour to it. Nice creamy foam at the top, and all that lovely citrus. That slightly grapefruity, slightly lemony flavour comes through.
Does it have other fruit flavours?
It has other fruit flavours.
Good.
It tastes a bit like Jaipur to me.
It is Jaipur.
Well done, Oz. Now let's see if I can impress with my carefully considered tasting notes.
Hoppy fruit flavours with overtones of fruity hops and a beery finish.
You think that's a really clever remark, don't you?
Beer is a simple drink for people who want to get on with something useful. It's not a philosopher's drink. It's not like wine. French people drink wine and sit down and contemplate the meaning of a teacup. British people drink beer to slake the thirst that they've built up from building things. It's ridiculous. Right, try that one. What sort of finish?
Oh, God.
Molten caramel dominates.
I would say malty caramel. What?
You say you'd say it, but you can't, can you? That's the problem.
Got 1 minute to our train, James. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
Whoops.
See you soon.
Platform.
Bye.
Oops, James. We go. Right, now the next thing we're going to do is get off at Huddersfield. Right.
That man just took a picture of your arse. Did he?
Great. Right.
By the time we get to Huddersfield 10 minutes later, the tasting challenge has gone out the window. I don't know, the more James drinks, the less I understand what he's on about.
This is Samurai.
Yep.
Brewed in Bradford.
Brewed in Bradford.
Brewed in Bradford.
See what I mean?
Hey, now, that's the smell on that. What you get on the smell? Hot. Timothy says light mild. Try that.
Have we already had this? Have we already had this?
See what it's different pub, different flavour.
We're being really fancy about beer.
No, the terroir.
You said terroir.
The terroir of...
He said terroir.
Right. The train's coming. Train's coming. That is our train. That's that train. Okay, it's great. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We are sorry to announce that the 1948 service to Manchester Piccadilly is delayed by approximately 8 minutes.
That's us.
Please listen for further announcements.
Oh well, let's keep
Class
it.
of Samurai. I've learned nothing about beer from this exercise.
You have actually. It has been seeping into your pores. That's our train. Hang on. Whoops.
Is it?
That's our train.
Is that our train?
It's our train, James. Come on, James. Train.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Thank you. Where's the tickets? Where are the tickets, I should say?
I have a horrible feeling there are
Not in the first pub.
Ah, Stalybridge. Fancy a pint?
Good. Should we have halves? Is that sensible?
No, let's have pints. Let's not waste time.
Sorry, it's
Girly.
girly. Oh, okay. Right, pints then, please. Yes. I'm already sniffing beer, which I wouldn't normally do.
Drink it.
Every town,
Stop talking,
every
drink.
village can have a beer.
Every town, every village
intellectualising-
used to have a beer.
But intellectualising it is a bit like intellectualising sausages, which really annoys me. You know, people
Sausages. Intellectual sausage is absolutely fantastic.
No, it
there
isn't.
are
It's wrong.
thousands of brilliant sausages to be had.
The fact is, with so many different beers available, I don't need to start intellectualising it and getting into the habit of drinking beer because it becomes interesting to talk about. I know you do it with wine. I've started to do it with wine since I've known you. You will make beer complicated, like you made wine complicated
No, it's
for
just,
me.
if
made
you
it
just make it
complicated.
into a commodity, the big...
It is a
you have
commodity.
one brewery, you have
It's a
one
commodity.
brewery,
No,
the whole of England.
no,
It's a
wrong.
massive
It might be a local
factory, and
commodity.
all the beers will
I
taste
dare
the
say
same.
it will be a local commodity
If it's
made with
local,
local
it'll taste
ingredients.
different.
That's lovely.
You
But the
taste
fact
the
is,
pie
it's a
in
commodity.
Wigan,
You
it
drink
tastes different
beer.
from a pie in Warrington, and it's supposed to taste
It's not because they're so expensive.
No, it's just...
So, James, what have you learned about the glory of our storious national drink?
I think we should record my thoughts for prosperity.
Right.
So you just point it so that I appear in that window but don't touch anything.
Nothing's happened yet. You've stopped moving.
Don't press that.